while Democrats still love and support Israel, but they are much more nervous about his tactics in Gaza, and 30 of them boycotted the speech. And Kamala Harris, who, as vice president, is supposed to preside over joint sessions of Congress, she was not there. So she was speaking to sorority sisters in the Midwest. And so that was kind of taken as a slight, but she is meeting with him later today. And so she kind of has to keep a balance between helping Israel and addressing the concerns of her base, which are not as, they don't like Netanyahu at all.
4 weeks ago, she was the worst politician in America. Now they say, isn't it amazing? Look at her. She's so beautiful. She's so magnificent.
I mean, he's got to do better than lying Kamala, isn't he?
He has. And like you said, he's road testing a few things. The Republicans don't quite know where to pitch this. Some on the right are saying that because she's a woman and the first woman of colour to stand as a presidential candidate when that's confirmed, that she's simply what they say a DEI, a diversity, equality candidate. That's not going to wash, I don't think. And the more sensible people in the Republican Party are trying to back that down a bit and attack her on policy. I mean, one thing that they will go after, I'm sure, is the border. She's been in charge of the border, at least was put in charge of the border when Joe Biden came into office. That's been a disaster. More than 10 million illegal migrants crossing into the US from Mexico. She's had no handle on that at all. So I think that's the kind of thing we'll see. She's probably to the left of Joe Biden politically. So again, that's something you'll see, I think, the Trump campaign focusing on. But they've got to get their arguments together, their strategy together. Because at the moment, just saying that, she's beautiful and she couldn't be at the top of the ticket isn't really going to work, I don't think.
I know it's early days yet, and obviously until she starts sort of setting out, it's a difficult thing, setting out her own pitch as distinct from being a Biden pitch. But what is the polling saying? Are we getting any? I was reading somewhere that actually, although sort of headline polls are pretty much unmoved, it does look like she's picking up some of the, particularly, is it younger voters or the swing in swing states? There does seem to be a material difference between how she performs against Trump compared to Biden.
That's right. I think the longer Joe Biden stayed in the race, the more states became swing states. We were up to about 8 or 9 that we were counting that were probably in play. I think by Kamala Harris coming into the race, I think that cuts that number of states down to maybe 5 or 6. And then on top of that, we've still got to wait for her vice presidential choice. People are talking about the governor of Pennsylvania or perhaps a senator from Arizona. Now, both of those will probably lock down another state for her. So I think that even though the big picture polls haven't really changed at all, Trump's up by about 2 or 3 points in some, Kamala Harris is up by 2 or 3 points in others. Where you're looking at the swing states, I think that the number of swing states narrows, and I think the gap between them is also narrowed a little bit. That said, a lot of people on the Democratic side, a lot of people who used to work for Barack Obama, a guy called David Axelrod in particular, he's expressed the opinion that he just doesn't think that Kamala Harris can beat Trump. The polls suggest that she's going to have a real uphill struggle.
Let's now speak with Daniel Lippman, who is White House reporter for Politico. Daniel, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, look, let's start off with, before we talk about President Biden, let's talk about Prime Minister Netanyahu. Tell us about what the kind of atmosphere was like yesterday for his big address to Congress, and what do you expect to happen in the meeting today?
Well, it was particularly Republicans who were very enthusiastic about welcoming him. They wanted to give him a platform. They have been strong supporters of his campaign in Gaza, while Democrats still love and support Israel, but they are much more nervous about his tactics in Gaza. And 30 of them boycotted the speech. And Kamala Harris, who, as vice president, is supposed to preside over joint sessions of Congress, she was not there. So she was speaking to sorority sisters in the Midwest. And so that was kind of taken as a slight, but she is meeting with him later today. And so she kind of has to keep a balance between helping Israel and addressing the concerns of her base, which are not as, they don't like Netanyahu at all.
Absolutely. And it's a tough moment for her in a way, isn't it? Because one of the big things that we've seen since she's entered the race is, from all accounts, there's been a bit of support from young people. And of course, the Democrats really want young people to get out and vote. But Gaza's a big issue that young people are very affected by in America.
They are, but a lot of young people were not very happy with Joe Biden running again, and so she is a much younger candidate than Biden. She is more in tune with what young people want in some areas, and what Democrats I talked to are making the point is that JD Vance, the vice presidential candidate on the Republican side, he didn't even show up to the speech either. He was at a campaign rally, and he's a senator, and so he was supposed to be there as well, and so. People are kind of saying, well, Republicans, even though it wasn't a specific boycott, like some of the Democrats, that was they noted that and kind of said, how can you criticize Harris if Vance didn't even show up either?
Ah, that's very interesting. Well, look, Daniel, thanks so much for your time. Now let's catch up with Democratic strategist and media consultant Hans Scheinkopf. And Hans, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. What did you make about Joe Biden's address last night in the Oval Office? What were your thoughts?
Well, downplayed himself sufficiently, but made the case for his presidency. Came across as a patriot who made a right decision. I think it was very positive for him, frankly, and it was positive for the country. He stepped out of the limelight very softly and casually, so he didn't crash Vice President Harris's moment of glory.
And it was quite emotional watching him, and he reflected a lot on his life. He talked about the kid with the stutter reaching these great heights. How sort of benevolently do you think the American public will be looking at Joe Biden right now?
Well, if they're going to think of him, the issue is not right now, maybe, but historically, he'll be looked at as a guy who did the best he could in a very difficult time. In a post-COVID world, and in a situation where America's security interests and the security interests of the UK and Europe, frankly, were at risk, he did the best he could, and he'll be looked at well over history. But the interesting part about Joe Biden is the fact that he can inject personal experience into almost everything he does, making him almost very sympathetic figure. But people are somewhat relieved that he gave that speech from the Oval Office yesterday, and that things are now moving forward.
And let's talk about moving forward. Let's focus on Kamala Harris. Now, she has just issued a campaign video. I think we're just trying to find that clip. Apologies about that.
Sure.
What do you think? How do you think Kamala Harris is doing? And what do you think her kind of big message is going to be?
And it can't just be, her big message just can't be about bashing Donald Trump. The big message has got to be about opportunity, and it's got to relate to the new generation of voters. And it may sound odd, but she's 59. Joe Biden is 81. There's a shift going on in the country, and there's a shift going on in the basic demographic of the Democratic Party. Its issues have changed. It's in a much more difficult position in many ways than the Republicans are, because their coalition is very clear, it's very defined. The Democrats have multiple entities, and to bring them together is going to be very difficult. That's her great mission. How do you bring blacks, Jews, blue-collar people, what's left of them who aren't Republicans,
together,
Latinos, together in one place?
Hans, we've managed to find that clip. Let's just have a listen to what she's saying in her video.
What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom.
So, Han, she's really, zoning in on the word freedom there. In fact, using Beyonce's famous track "Freedom." What do you think what message is she trying to get out? Why pick that word, freedom?
It's a smart move. Why? Because she's relating to black people immediately. She's relating to younger people, and she's relating to the coalition she needs to put together. The music is upbeat. It's more reflective of the generation that she's trying to operate in. Her voice is a very clear one and dynamic. It's a smart way to do things, but you have to give some credit to the Democrats for being able to put this video together and launch this campaign as quickly as they did, which tells me it was planned for a long time.
Yeah, It's quite difficult to put something together that quickly. And final question to you, Hans, how tough is the question of border security going to be for her?
The problem will be that for her, that border security may in fact define the election. It's an issue that impacts large parts of her constituency nationally. And look for the Trumps to find a case when she was in the Attorney General's office in California involving a migrant that committed a homicide or something like that. It'll be Willie Horton, for your listeners who may recall, that kind of vicious attack campaign from a long time ago that got rid of Michael Dukakis and made George Bush the president.
Okay, well, look, Hans, we'll have to leave it there, but really, really good to chat to you and get your insight. That's Hans Scheinkoff, who is a Democratic strategist there. Well, look, plenty more to come. We're going to be catching up with what's happening with Greater Manchester Police, and we're going to be looking at the runners and riders to be leader of the Conservative Party. But it's just gone 1:31. Let's catch up with Rachel Jewell for the latest news headlines.